So The Last of Us Part 2 is finally here after 7 years of waiting, and the reviews are mixed to say the least. Many people are review bombing this game, whilst others, such as myself, have a strong support for this game and its story. I'm going to give my reasons why I believe this game is a masterpiece in my opinion, and is not getting enough credit for what it's worth. I was first introduced to The Last of Us Part 1 on the PS4 Remastered Edition, as when it released on the PS3 originally, I only ever got games as gifts. So opening myself up to new franchises was rare, as I'd most likely pick a new Call of Duty game or something I was familiar with. I remember the first franchise I actually was really hooked onto when I was younger on the PS3 was the Uncharted franchise. Every week after school on a Friday, I'd go over to my friend's house and we'd play on his PS3. His game library was much bigger and diverse than mine, owning both the first and second Uncharted games, which were the only two out at that time. I played some levels of Uncharted, saw some gameplay, and was just having a blast. A short time down the road, my parents bought me the first and second Uncharted games in a duo pack, which was re-released to celebrate both games going to platinum on the PS3. I played through both experiences and loved them dearly, causing me to ask for the third Uncharted game, Drake's Deception, for Christmas the following year. I remember getting the deluxe edition of the game and playing it all Christmas. This love of the Uncharted franchise made me want to indulge into what Naughty Dog had to offer, leading me on to play The Last of Us, granted a few years after its release. I quickly learned that it was nothing like Uncharted. It was much more dark, less big fun adventure, and more serious and deeper tones and issues. The first 30 minutes of the game has some of the most emotional moments in gaming, setting up the rest of the story to be something amazing. But I remember completing The Last of Us with a sense of emptiness. I completed the game, but I didn't complete the story. Joel travelled across the country with a young girl who he saw his daughter in, growing an attachment that cannot be broken. To many people, Joel was not a good guy. He murdered people, ruined a lot of lives, but that's what's so important about the first Last of Us. It has ordinary people like Joel, takes something so precious away from them and teases them with a second chance, with the downside being some very high cost. It really tests both Joel and the player on their morals and what they would do for someone they care about. The massive decision that he makes at the end of the game is the final test of his morals. Does he let the doctors kill Ellie and make a cure, potentially saving mankind, or stop them in their tracks and save Ellie's life? As we all know, Joel made the decision to save Ellie, and as much as a selfish and overall destructive choice that was, you can understand why he done it. He couldn't save Sarah at the beginning of his game. Every day after she died he wishes he could have saved her. Now that he has the chance to save Ellie, he is not going to let that pass. Fast forward to The Last of Us Part 2, and we are given a game that is purely built upon Joel's choices in the first game. This review is mainly about the story, but I want to quickly talk about other aspects of the game. The graphics, lighting, and sound are all phenomenal, somehow improving the impressive milestones that were achieved in Uncharted 4. As well as having very impressive mechanics, such as gunplay, ropes, and the way enemies and players interact with the environment, the combat is extremely satisfying, with hand-to-hand melee requiring you to dodge at certain times and use items to help you in your engagements. When you shoot enemies in the legs, they become immobile to an extent, with realistic and detailed injuries shown, and the enemies have some form of life to them. Sometimes when you shoot an enemy beside another one, they'd scream out their name in horror. This game done so well in just level building and creating an immersive world that I have practically never experienced in much games before. Enemies did not feel just like another wave of copy and pasted bad guys generically coming at you with no emotion. They felt like individual people. You felt like you were having an engagement with unique enemies and there's actually an outcome of it. You didn't just kill an enemy and nothing happened. The moment you killed an enemy, the other people would react like they just lost their best friend. It genuinely felt like you were invading these people and you were taking something from them, and it's that sort of immersive experience that I've actually not really experienced in any other game. Overall, I found the gameplay itself to be extremely satisfying. I don't really think anyone can dispute how beautiful this game looks. It is definitely a great milestone, and I am looking forward to what Naughty Dog has to offer in the future. So back to the story. This game picks up many years down the road from the finale of the first game, with Joel and Ellie settled in Jackson, with Tommy and a bunch of new faces. Early on we are introduced to a new character called Abby. Not much is known about her for quite some time, only that her and her group that she is with are searching for Joel, but for what reason we do not know. Very early on in the game, Joel and Abby cross paths, with Joel in a very vulnerable position. Abby takes this opportunity to murder Joel with a golf club, with both Ellie and Tommy watching. This moment is heartbreaking for both them and us players, having to watch our beloved protagonist from the first game murdered in the very beginning of the game. This causes the player, including myself, to instantly hate Abby and feel we need to fight back. Both Ellie and Tommy feel the exact same way, causing them to go on their own revenge mission. Now, many people are calling this a simple revenge story game, and it is. Ellie's part is a simple revenge story. But the game takes a massive turn when we start to play as Abby, a character which we've grown to hate over the hours of playing as Ellie. We are shown many flashbacks of Abby and her father, who is actually the doctor that was going to operate on Ellie and make a vaccine. However, as we're all aware, he was murdered by Joel, and it's at this point I really got an understanding of Abby and her actions. I like to think of this a lot like The Walking Dead with Negan and Rick. If anyone has watched the show, you may remember Negan's introduction. He had all our main characters lined up, vulnerable on their knees, and their lives were in his hands. He ends up killing two beloved characters that were fan favourites, causing him to be painted as the villain for the rest of the show. But as the show actually progresses, you understand Negan. Rick and his crew murdered an entire outpost of Negan's crew in their sleep, causing Negan to react and kill two of them, setting them as an example, letting the rest go, and telling them not to do it again. And I see this as the same with Abby. Joel murdered Abby's dad, as well as killing many more Fireflies. Abby reacts by killing Joel and letting Ellie and Tommy leave as an example and not do it again. Ellie and Tommy continue to cause conflict, resulting in more unnecessary death. Ellie then goes on to kill Owen and Mel, who are very close to Abby. Even when Abby has hit a low point again, she still lets Ellie go, killing Jesse and Tommy, though Tommy manages to survive and recover. She even says to Ellie, "Don't let me see you again," and leaves. Ellie actually listens to this for a short while, and ends up settling down with Dina and her newborn son in a ranch outside of Jackson. This is until Tommy reaches out to her, claiming that he has a location of Abby, pursuing her into going after Abby one last time. Ellie ends up finding Abby in a vulnerable state, provoking her into a fight. Ellie manages to get the upper hand, and in a split-second decision, lets Abby live and leave. Ellie realizes that killing Abby won't change anything, and it's a vicious cycle that was caused by Joel in the first game. Joel's death was a direct consequence of his actions, and Ellie's decision to end the cycle of revenge puts an end to Joel's story. For me, Joel doesn't die when Abby kills him. He dies when Ellie lets Abby live. The Last of Us 2 builds upon a struggle that was introduced in the first game, showing that when the world is tipped upside down, many people make very harsh decisions. Joel isn't a bad guy. He'd done what he needed to protect Ellie and what he cared about. But neither is Abby. This game portrays very well how everyone is going through the same struggles, and it isn't as black and white as a good and a bad guy. Just survivors trying to make their way in a world and live another day. Abby was introduced in a way that made me hate her. I wanted to get my revenge. But once you started to play her side of the story, you began to reason with her. In my opinion, Abby was a great character, which this game needed to flip the game upside down. Ever since the beginning of the first game, we see Joel make many decisions without consequences, and when they finally get to him in part 2, it's emotional. Joel is one of my favourite video game characters of all time, but he needed to have consequences for his actions. I would have been genuinely disappointed if we just got a simple Joel and Ellie adventure for part 2, instead of what we actually got. If Joel could go around killing hundreds of people without any repercussions, then the game would be stale and there would be no risk to his survival or emotional dilemmas. Joel saving Ellie means that he gave his life for hers, knowing he would have been a wanted man for many people. Joel was a father who could not save his first daughter, so he seized his opportunity to save his new one and give his life for hers. That's what The Last of Us is for me, a father doing everything for his daughter. Part 2 really gave me the emotional story I was looking for, with Ellie trying to overcome her fear of being alone and losing the people she loved, and that's why, in my opinion, The Last of Us 2 is a gaming masterpiece.